About 7 years ago, when I was still a student, I had an unsettling experience that I'll never forget. The apartment I had been living in for nearly 6 months after starting school turned out to be involved in a double lease due to a mistake by the real estate agency. The situation escalated into a lawsuit, and as a result, I was forced to vacate the apartment within a set deadline. The agency, deeply apologetic, even brought a box of sweets to express their regret and assured me that they would find a new place that met my conditions before the deadline. However, whether due to bad timing or sheer bad luck, they were unable to secure a suitable apartment before my move-out date. Clearly desperate, the real estate agency scrambled at the last minute and offered me a temporary place, promising to find a permanent one within a month. The apartment they provided was far beyond what I could afford under normal circumstances. Though a bit old, likely built 20 to 30 years ago, it had 2 rooms, a separate bathroom and toilet, and was in a good location. It seemed too good to be true. Suspicious that it might be a stigmatized property, I pressed the agency for details, but they assured me that no such incidents had occurred. However, they did warn me to avoid going outside late at night due to the area's poor security. I half joked to myself that maybe a Yakuza gang lived nearby, but I figured that since it was only for a month, if things got bad, I could always crash at a friend's place. Yet, as soon as I moved in, I realized that the issue wasn't Yakuza or delinquents, it was something far worse. A lot of strange things happened, so I'll list them. By the second day, I noticed that while other floors had residents, mine was completely empty except for me. One evening, as I stepped out of the elevator onto my floor, I heard a cat meowing. The sound seemed to be coming from inside the fire extinguisher cabinet where the emergency alarm was installed. Thinking it might be trapped, I opened the cabinet, but there was nothing inside. Every 2 or 3 nights, I would hear a dragging sound from the ceiling, as if something was being pulled across the floor above me. Initially, I thought it was just the upstairs resident, but I soon realized the noise was coming from within the attic space. Sometimes, when stepping off the elevator onto my floor, I would feel an intense gaze watching me. Yet, whenever I looked around, no one was there. One morning, I woke up and saw a man in a suit standing on my balcony through the gap in my curtains. Alarmed, I threw open the curtains, but he had vanished. When I stepped outside, I found a neatly placed pair of leather shoes. Thinking, no way. I looked over the edge to see if someone had jumped, but there was no sign of a fall. When I looked back down, the shoes had disappeared. On multiple occasions, I witnessed high-heeled shoes walking around the floor by themselves, both day and night. Upon returning home after being out, I would sometimes find the bathtub mysteriously filled with water or the strong scent of perfume lingering in the air. Occasionally, I heard a woman's laughter coming from the stairwell next to the elevator. But it wasn't normal laughter, it was deranged. Every Friday night at around 3 a.m., I would hear strange, wet footsteps outside, making a slapping sound, Bicha. Bicha. While on the phone in my room, the call would sometimes be interrupted by eerie groans, as if the line was mixing with another signal. After about a week of enduring these occurrences, I finally called the real estate agency to complain. They apologized profusely and reassured me, as long as you don't go outside late at night, there shouldn't be any actual harm. Please bear with it a little longer. Since nothing had physically harmed me yet, and there were only 2 or 3 weeks left before I could leave, I decided to put up with it. I've always been the type to brush off supernatural things. However, there were 2 incidents that truly terrified me. One night, I woke up needing to use the bathroom. As I stepped out, I froze. The entranceway had an old woman sitting in it. The door was auto-locked. How did she get in? Shaken, I cautiously spoke up, excuse me? The old woman turned to me with a smile and said, I'm waiting for my husband. He's here, isn't he? I told her there was no one like that here, but she kept smiling and insisted, I'll wait. I know he's here. Seeing no way to reason with her, I called the police. When the officers arrived, they gently tried to escort her out, but as soon as the door closed behind them, she started pounding on it violently and screamed, Give me back my husband. Startled, I opened the door, only to see the old woman being restrained by 3 police officers, her eyes rolled back, her face twisted into a terrifying expression. Even now, I can't forget that horrifying look. The second incident happened on the day I received the call from the real estate agency that they had finally found a permanent apartment for me. It was a Sunday, so I had no school. After receiving the call, I started packing my belongings when I heard a rustling noise at the entrance. Curious, I opened the door and found a small cardboard box, about 30 centimeters across, placed outside. Feeling uneasy, I brought it inside and opened it. Inside was a filthy, carved wooden doll. On its back, scribbled with a marker, were the words "a doll that brings happiness." Disturbed, I put the doll back in the box, placed it outside the door, and resumed packing. But then, I heard the rustling noise again. What now? I opened the door again. This time, a piece of paper had been placed on top of the box. It read, "Did you become happy?" I scanned the hallway, checked the elevator and the stairs, but there was no sign of anyone. By this point, I had grown somewhat accustomed to the strange happenings in this building, so I just sighed and returned to my packing. But then, I heard a knocking sound, tap tap, on my door. At first, I ignored it. But it kept going, persistently. Annoyed, I was about to swing open the door and yell, but as soon as my hand touched the knob, I hesitated. I don't know how to explain it, but something felt wrong. It wasn't just fear. My entire body was tingling with unease, like my instincts were screaming at me not to open the door. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I cautiously peeked through the door's peephole. There was a woman in her early to mid-20s standing outside. But something was off. She was disturbingly thin, her hair a tangled mess, and her hands were wrapped in bandages. Just as I thought, what the hell? She suddenly pressed her face against the peephole, her bloodshot eyes staring directly into mine. With a hoarse voice, she whispered, "You became happy, didn't you? You did, right?" The sudden movement caught me completely off guard, and I fell backward in shock. I was so rattled that I just sat there, frozen. For the next hour, she stayed pressed against the door, repeating the same words over and over, "You became happy, didn't you?" When she finally went silent, I cautiously checked the peephole again. She was gone. And so was the box with the doll. 2 days later, I left that apartment for good. After moving into my new place, I told the real estate agency everything and asked what was going on. But even they didn't know the full story. Apparently, weird occurrences only started happening in that building about 2 years prior. Before that, there were no rumors of deaths or crimes. However, at some point, eerie events became so frequent that tenants left within months, and no new residents stayed long. 2 years later, I happened to pass by the area and decided to take a detour to check on that building. It was gone. The whole thing had been demolished and turned into a parking lot.